Hello and welcome. So today what we're going to do is build a Windows desktop program. We're going to use WPF or Windows Presentation Foundation. It's part of the .NET bits and pieces. So what we'll do is we'll start up a Visual Studio and we will create a project. So let's get it going. So what we're going to do is create a new project. And then under search for templates, we'll put in WPF. So we're going to be using the C# programming language. So we want to choose the WPF application with C#. There's also WPF application with Visual Basic, but we're going to go with the C# one. Okay, and we click next. So we can give it a project name, whatever you want to call it. So my first project, for example. It's a good enough name for any. And then it'll ask you what framework do you want to use, so what version of .NET. So we've got the .NET version 6 or .NET version 7. We'll just select the latest and greatest version 7, hit create. Not really matter at this stage. And that starts up our standard Visual Studio window. So a wee brief tour of this. Some of the things that you want to look at. This main window here at the top. That's going to be our application, and we're going to put some controls on there. We'll see what those are in a minute. We also have some XAML or XAML. So this is code that basically can control what this looks like. So for example, if you look at the width at the minute, that's 800 pixels wide. And I know that because it says down here width equals 800. So if I was to change that 800, say to 600, you can actually see the main window size move here. And if I change the height from 450 to example 300, again, you can see that it changes. So we want to put some controls on here. What we're going to do today is put a label on here, which is something that allows us to put some text on. And we're also going to put a button on. And when we press the button, we're going to change what it says in the text. So this is a very, very simple application, very simple program, but it's just to show you some of the basics that we want to get the hold of. So to put some of these controls or items onto the window, we use the toolbox. So the toolbox is usually found over here on the left hand side. If it's not there, if you hit a view, and then if we have a look down here, we will have toolbox. So we can click on there and that opens the toolbox out. Otherwise you can just click on this little button on the left and the toolbox appears. So we have some common controls, things that we use regularly, and then there's all the controls. So there's a whole bunch of different things there that we can look for, like date picker and all sorts of crazy things. So what we want today is a button and a label. Those are the simple things we want. So first of all, we'll just grab a label, and I'm just dragging it out and letting go, and it's popped a label here into my window. So one of the first things I'm going to do is make that a little bit bigger. So we'll just grab the little grab handle on the side and pull it over to the right, and that's made it nice and big. And then I'm also going to go back to the toolbox, grab a button and drag that out as well. So now we have a button as well. And what we'll do is we'll make it a bit bigger too. So we'll pull the button over so it's a bit larger. Now at the moment these are all over the place. We can actually use this XAML code to tidy this up and to make this look really good. So I'll just show you some very basic things that we can do. So first of all, we probably want the content inside our label to be in the middle, and we want the actual overall label itself to be in the middle. Now we can't really see, whenever we have our cursor over it, we can't really see where the whole label is there. So what I'm going to do is actually just give that a background color. So down in our XAML, you'll see within the grid here. So the grid is sort of this box that's painted onto the main window. And within that grid, we've put these items. So later on, we can actually change the grid and put rows and columns and stuff on there in the XAML to organize when we have lots of these controls on our user interface. But for now, what we're going to do is just tidy these up a little bit. So okay, the first one, the label. If I click down in here in this code, I can actually change some of the things by changing what it says down in here. So one of the first things I'm going to do is put a background on so that we can see what we're working with. And if I just type BACK, you can see that it's given me some options here, things that I might want, like background or give feedback or so on. So background is the one I want. So if I double click on that, I could also just hit tab and it would fill that out. And as you can see, it's given me a whole list of various colors here that I can choose. So that's lovely. Aqua, I'm assuming, is some sort of blue. So if we click on aqua, oh, it is, yeah. It's a very bright blue. So that's fine. We'll leave that as it is at the minute, because it lets us see where our label is. So the next thing, we want to align the text that what we've said inside the label, the text that we've written in our label, the content. You can see we have the content property here, just set the label. So what I'll do is I'll change that first of all and just say this is the label. So you can see that that's what the text is written inside the label now. So let's see if we can center this content in the middle of the box. So there's a property called horizontal content alignment, and we want that to be in the center. And now we've centered that. But also the horizontal alignment, we would like that also to be in the center. And then this margin bit, this basically just gives us protections left and right, where we don't get near things. So the horizontal alignment being center, the margin, this 157 is drawn to the left hand side of this. So if I put it goes left, top, right, and bottom. So we want the top at 67 because that defines where we are from the top here. But if we make this left one 0, that now brings our label right into the middle. So similarly with the button here, we can see it looks fairly much centered as well. But what we'll want to do is to, again, set the left hand margin to 0. And you'll see it'll actually move over to the left. And then what we'll do, that's because the horizontal alignment is left. So what we'll do is center that. Center. And now we've centered a button too. So that's great. We've got a label, we've got a button. On the button, instead of just saying button, maybe we'll have please click me. Make it more enticing. So we've set the content property in the XAML, just to please click me. So if we run this, you'll see what happens. So we have our application. Now what you might have is a whole bunch of little icons like this. So these are used for debugging and doing other cool things. If we don't want those at the minute, we can just press this arrow here on the right hand side and that minimizes that. So we have our application and please click me. So we click on it. And of course, nothing happens because we haven't written any code to make it do anything yet. But what we do want to do is when we click this, we want to change what it says in the label. So that's what we're going to get our application to do. So I can stop the debugging just by pressing the red X and it brings me back up my Visual Studio environment here. So this button, how do we get it to do stuff? Well, first of all, we want to give the label and the button some names. So in the properties of these, each of these has properties like its width, its height, and it also has the content, which we've seen down here. And it has other things like the background might also be a property. So it has a name property. And to see the properties of these items, if we click on one, so for example on this label, you'll see over here on the right hand side we've got the properties. My nugget's in the way, so I'll just minimize that up and bring it up here so that you can see it. So we have a properties dialog here. So within that you can see content. This is the label, which is what it says up here. So if I were to change this, it would change on the label itself. And another property it has is name. So what we're going to do is, at the minute it doesn't have any name, we're just going to call it my label. And then I can use that in the code later on. So that's great. We've changed the property, the name property of this to my label. And it's just a thing that we can refer to it with. So similarly with the button, it says please click me as the content. So what we want is an event handler. So an event is, for example, when it's clicked or when it's drag and dropped, or whenever a window size changes. There's a whole bunch of different events that can occur, and we want to write some code that handles these events or does things triggered by these events. So for this button, it's a click event. Whenever we click on it, we want some code to occur. So the way we can do that is, if we go back down to the properties window, you'll see here this shows you the properties, but this little lightning bolt to the side is the event handlers for the selected item. So if we click on that, we can see that we have the very first one is a click event. Well, of course, we want to give this a name as well, so we'll just call it my button. So now it also has a name. So the label has got a name, my label, and the button has a name, my button. So that's great. Now, we can fill this out. There's a whole long way around doing this, but there's a shortcut. So if you see where it says click here, this box to the right of it, if we double click in that box, it actually fills out. It's moved over into our code window now, where we've got some code. So we have the XAML, which defines what the user interface looks like, what controls we have and where they are on the window, and what initial properties that they have. And then we also have the C# file, which is the code that defines the events and what we do with those controls. So if we go back over to the XAML just for a second, you'll see that in the button we also have then, if we come across, you'll see that the click action equals my button underscore click. So that just tells it what bit of code to run whenever the button is clicked. So you can also see it here, my button underscore click. So that was all automatically done when we double clicked on here. And it even moved us over into the code window where it's defined, my button underscore click. So whatever code we write in here will run whenever we click on the button. And what we want to do is just change the label. So we want to change the content that's in the label. So if you remember, we've got my label. So I've typed my L, and you can see it sees my label. So I'll just hit tab, and it'll automatically fill that in. And then dot, and that gives you a whole bunch of the properties. So things like its height and its width, and the background, and all sorts of things. So one of the key ones is that we want to change is the content. So we'll choose content equals, and we'll just change it to a different string. So we'll type in hello world, thank you for pressing the button. So that's what it's going to type out onto the label, or change the content essentially of the label to hello world, thank you for pressing the button. So if we run that, we now have our application, and whenever we click on this button, it says hello world, thank you for pressing the button. So what we've done today is we've set up a window, and on the window we've put a couple of controls. So from the toolbox, so what we've put on is a label and a button, and we've given those names. So we have my label and my button, and we've set up some code that when we click the button, that it runs some code, the my button underscore click code, which then changes the content of the label. So if you follow along with this and you're able to do something very similar, you're a long way along developing these Windows desktop applications. So there's going to be some more of these just to review different types of controls and different events, and some more subtle things that how to code them and how to interact them and bind them to data and various other bits and pieces. But this is the basics. So if you can follow along this far, you've already created your first Windows desktop application. Congratulations, good stuff. So please come back again soon and have a look for some other videos on how to create cool desktop applications.